Hello everyone. I thought I'd do a quick video because I was quite excited to see that a lovely lady called Pandora, a tarot specialist, had done a review of the tarot majors, and unfortunately she doesn't allow comments, so she would have had quite a lot of interaction from me. I'm known to comment a lot and write a lot, but as that wasn't possible, I thought I'd just supplement some of what she said with my own comments here. So, first of all, she's absolutely right in saying that Mebes and his school in Russia had a lineage with the French esoteric school, which was headed up by Papus, and there are many correspondences between those traditions. In fact, Mebes headed up the Martinist order. That's how that came about. And of course, as she also pointed out, the tarot attributes are shared. The tarot Hebrew alphabet attributes are shared between the French and the Russian schools. However, there's also quite some differences. I'm not sure if she's had a chance to read the book, but she might then start to see that there are also quite significant differences between the schools. And actually Mebes did break with Papus. As it says, I'll just read a little bit out from the introduction, which I think helps to explain it. Gregory Mebes was born in Riga in 1968. After graduating in 1891 for the Physics and Mathematics faculty of St. Petersburg University, he gave up his career and devoted himself entirely to the study of the secret knowledge. In the 1904 to 1905 school year, he taught physics and mathematics at another school, more schools in St. Petersburg. And he was renowned for being a master mathematician. As Pandora pointed out, his book has a lot of Pythagorean-based formulas in there, and Mebes' mystery name was Butator, after the Mage of Mathematics. So there is quite a strong mathematical aspect. Now then, he, as already mentioned, was a Martinist leader, and the Martinist Lodge, which was a branch of the French order of the same name, the Kabbalistic Order of the Rose Cross, was founded in Russia by Papus. And at the end of 1910, Mebes became the Inspector General of this branch of the order. In 1911 to 12, he read in St. Petersburg a lecture course on the Encyclopedia of the Occult, upon which this is based, which followed Papus's theory in almost everything. Now then, in August 1912, Mebes did free himself from the tutelage of the Paris leaders and proclaimed the independence of the Russian Martinists. And from then on he headed up an Apollonia lodge under his mystery name of Butator, and it was declared a great lodge by the Grand Council of Russia. So after this break, this independent order became the autonomous discharge of Martinism of Russian obedience, led by the invisible master Mebes. And this was the sort of start of the independent Russian chain. Now there are all sorts of reasons why the Russians might have broken with the French. I think on a basic level, there was obviously the challenge of distance. It's not convenient to have a group leader who's many miles away in Paris when you're based in St. Petersburg. There might also have been personality clashes, and quite a lot of Martinist lodges did quite famously break with Papus, particularly after his death, it should be said, when his son took over. But nevertheless, there might have been some disagreements, as tends to happen within almost every magical group. Also, and I think this is definitely relevant, Russia from 1912 onwards was in the build-up to the revolution, and Paris as a hotbed of left-wing revolutionary intellectual thought was probably deemed to be a dangerous influence insofar as outside scrutiny on the Russian groups was concerned. Safer to be autonomous and not to be under the suggestion of political influence from outside, especially given that Russia was about to have its own revolution. So that certainly came into it. There's another, not proven, but quite a strong theory, and I'm not sure how well known this was at the time. Mebes was very well connected, so if there's information out there, then the head of the Russian order would be likely to know it, which was that the protocols of Sion, the notorious forgery, anti-Semitic forgery, originated with a French cult group, the Priory of Sion with an S, which was led by Papus. So like I said, this is not something we can say as a definitive fact, but there is quite some evidence to suggest that this document was forged in Paris and could have been delivered to Rasputin, some say, kept under wraps, and then at the relevant time brought out, presented to the Tsar, and used to blow the Tsar's mind. There was already a strong anti-Semitic feeling in Russia at that time, and this of course would have fanned the flames in the most enormous way. Well, it did do. So although this is in the shadow realm, I don't think we can discount this as a possible influence, and it also taps into this whole idea of politics and why it was safer and more prudent for the Russian Lodge to be independent. So that's that. Quite an interesting thing to explore, but not in a short video. The other thing I wanted to mention was Pandora did mention the Mouni Sadhu book. Mouni Sadhu copied Mebes. That's it. Mouni Sadhu's book is he plagiarised it almost entirely. He might have glossed it and made it a bit easier, but the material is from Mebes. That's it. It was recognised as having come from Mebes by the person who brought us the Minor Arcana. So this isn't the cover as it's actually published now. I got rid of the red, the garish red text. But as mentioned in the review, the minors aren't covered in this book, which is quite big enough. The minors were published separately. So the notes of the minors were made by Nina Rodnikova, Mebes' chief initiate, who came to lead the Russian emigre community in Estonia after she escaped the Bolshevik Revolution herself. She went on to become a spy for the White Russian cause. So a very interesting character, Nina Rodnikova, and she preserved her wonderful notes of the tarot miners, gave them to a friend who took them to South America, where after a few years in a circuitous route found their way into the hands of Nicholas Geerse, another great initiative Mebes, a Martinist leader in his own right, who would be the main teacher of the tarot miners in the world, I would say. And the teachings remained hidden from English-speaking world until relatively recently when I published them as the tarot miners. So that's and they're much simpler than the majors, I should say, to understand, even though they're considered to be a higher work by the Russian occult school. Now this does actually contain an enormous amount of Kabbalah. So which I think once the book is actually read, it will become apparent that Mebes was a Kabbalist. His understanding of Kabbalah was very deep. It exceeded really anything I've seen in any of the French schools. As far as the Western mystery tradition goes, actually Mebes' understanding of Kabbalah exceeds almost anyone, certainly who was contemporary with him. So that becomes apparent. The whole structure of this teaching is based on the Tetragrammaton, the divine name of God. Of course, we have the Hebrew letters themselves at the head of each arcanum. So Kabbalah, incredibly important to Mebes, as it is indeed to this entire school, French or Russian. Now, the other thing I wanted to just refer to, since we're talking about big tarot books, the masterwork, the one that got most of us here in the first place, Meditations on the Tarot, of course. Now, then in Meditations on the Tarot, as readers will know, he does gives a tantalising glimpse of the Russian school in St. Petersburg, the immense shroud of snow which is over revolutionary Russia, pre-revolutionary Russia, he refers to very poignantly. Now, Tomberg, of course, inclines very strongly towards the French school, and there are all kinds of reasons for that. Him being a Catholic, dedicating it to Our Lady of Chartres is definitely one of them. And of course the Grail tradition of the tarot itself, and possibly Tomberg's own past lives in the French Grail lands could come into it. In this book, of course, this is a Christian hermetic work. In contrast with, although Mebes, there is Christian content in here, it's somewhat more theosophical or Rosicrucian than the deep Christian Catholicism of Valentin Tomberg. So this is Christian hermetic, and he does in some ways dissociate himself from the Russian school. However, when you read both books carefully, it's very clear that he did absorb a lot from the Mebes school. He was initiated by Nina Rodnikova in Estonia, and she taught him everything about the Mebes work, both the major and the minor arcana. And even though he orders things differently and has a part of an emphasis and brings out a different essence, and certainly brings something very new and unique to tarot studies, there is, the influence is undeniable in certain themes, such as, for example, the emphasis placed on the law of analogy and the resolution of binaries, on the Tetragrammaton. All the Kabbalistic content, in fact, it's very aligned with what we see in Mebes, and the emphasis on the letter Shin, which is, the pivot of this whole Russian school, the key to the door. It's also mentioned by Tomberg in his full Arcanum. So even though Meditations on the Tarot is a standalone work, unique in its own right, wonderful, the masterwork of tarot, I think without a doubt he is strongly influenced by the Russian school, and we can't really take that away. It would also be a mistake to say that Tomberg was, that anthroposophy was the first and last word in Tomberg's work, because he had an anthroposophical period, and certainly an enormous respect for Rudolf Steiner throughout his life, even after he broke with the Anthroposophical Society. But he did turn away from the anthroposophical school, and he did embrace Catholicism, and that's very clear both in what he says of himself and his work, and in what he shows us and writes in Meditations on the Tarot and subsequent works. So, we can't deny that. We can't deny the Russian influence, we can't deny the anthroposophical period, and we can't deny the fact that he became a Catholic and worked within the Catholic tradition as far as he was able, albeit esoterically. So yeah, that's it. That's my update on the tarot books.